Let's go on to a respected citizen of our country who's joined us on the phone line, Adam Senanu, an anti-corruption campaigner and also the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Adam, good morning. Thank you for your time, Tagbi.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great. Can Ghana ever win this fight against corruption?
Yes, we can reduce it. We can minimize the impact on society if we take the right action. If win is suggesting that you completely eradicate it, that is not likely as a human trait.
I see. Now, yesterday you saw Oliver Barker-Vomawor, who's a lawyer, respected Nanato Dazi before the Committee of Appointment in Parliament. And the allegation he had made was that some members of the appointment committee had collected money from some, or if you like, all of the nominees and were endorsing them. He eventually had to apologize for that and said he's happy to pull down the post he made. The signals that the citizens of Ghana are sending out is that he didn't stand the litmus test. What do you say?
I think who didn't stand the litmus test, Barker-Vomawor or the committee?
Barker-Vomawor. Because he made all of us believe that look, he had some evidence to show and prove yourself it was a problem.
No, it was. I mean, I found it incredulous. You know, the Times, as we say, the Times and Seasons were such that I found it difficult to believe that the entire committee would be engaged in something like this in the first instance. I thought that the worst case scenario, one person may be the thing, and then in my head, in that instance, then the phrasing or the crafting of the statement he had posted would still be wrong. So I wasn't too surprised. In my head, I was like, nah, this is a very likely outcome where the entire committee, no, that's not going to happen. So I wasn't entirely surprised. And when he started trying to explain the context, I felt that then he should have, crafted what he wanted differently.
Right.
Because, yes, we do have a history of incidents where MPs themselves have spoken to this matter,
right,
and it's not been cleared. So there's a context within which, yes, I mean, one is wondering, have they actually taken the action to ensure that these things don't repeat themselves? But in this instance, he gave them a clean bill of health at the end of the day.
Now, the institution of Parliament is always quick to defend themselves. But then you look at the Apia Kubi conversation where they led MPs to say that, look, we don't want a certain finance minister and his deputy to remain in office, and we want them off. And then later they caved in and they said, a businessman brought us money in an envelope and we didn't take it, blah, 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 blah. How should Parliament go ahead to purge itself of these allegations that continuously come to them?
They should go the full gamut. In that instance, they had an opportunity for one or two of them to serve as witnesses to the office of a special prosecutor. They declined. After giving us all the information that told us that, yes, really something untoward happened. Mm-hmm. When they were put to the test, they refused. They refused to give us this. And I found that unfortunate. These are the times where you need the mavericks like the PC Oforis, I think even Asedu in Ketia,
right.
The kind of people who it's almost like they're saying, damn the consequences. We must make something happen, They need to have the ability to hold the bull by its horns and say, look, our integrity matters above all else, and we are not going to sacrifice or rather make loyalty or allegiance much more supreme to the best interest of the collective, and which is the nation. And we need people like that in Parliament. That's the only way in which this hold will be broken. Otherwise, absolutely, the history tells us that there have been these instances attested to by members of Parliament themselves And so the single disclaimer and apology by lawyer Oliver Barker-Vomawor will not clear the public perception that certain things have transpired and Parliament is not, completely clean of these perceptions and or rather allegations and issues happening.
Now, again, the larger picture of a nation called Ghana, the psyche and mentality of the people that I've done something for you, have to do something for me in return, and all of that. How should we sanitize our minds so that this does not continue?
I've always argued that, look, it is possible to help one another without breaking any rules. You just do it within the framework of what is allowed. So all of us know that this is the extent to which we can assist you. If it's an interview, still make sure you have your CV, you have your experience. Come and sit there. We're not going to do any shortcut and then pick you out of the list. Prove yourself worthy, so prepare yourself. I mean, the societies that are making it, especially if you look at corruption, which is the Nordic countries, it's all about ingraining issues of honesty, integrity, hard work, right from childhood. So they model it in class. It's part and parcel of curriculum and content. And so these people grow up understanding that these things are much more, these core values are much more supreme or superior. And then you see it translate into the quality of the workforce and labor, that they are honest about everything. They put hard work above other things. We need to be intentional. So, yes, the idea that shortcuts are the way to make it, I think it is better understood within the context that no, shortcuts are not sustainable. At some point, it will all fall apart. Over and over again, you see it from governments that are using shortcuts. This will fall apart. You see it from individuals. They will get to a point where you peak and everything just comes down. And even what you had, you will lose it. And the vast majority of elder statesmen and women and people who've made it, whether in industry, are persons who, by dint of hard work and honesty, have built these things, and you see that they have stood the test of time. So maybe some more public education, and we are not doing enough in projecting models of individuals and industries that have survived. That probably will tell a better story and encourage many more people to seek that path rather than, you are my party member or you are my group member,
right,
whichever, whether it's lodge or whatever, and so therefore I must help you. No, that kind of thinking is not what is going to move this nation forward.
And that takes me to the question where we found the minority leader in Parliament telling the defense minister designate that, look, the fact that I'm grilling you doesn't mean that when protocol opportunities appear, you should not consider me. What does that tell you of where we are as a country?
It's a real unfortunate situation. Comments like that, I think that if they have an ethics and privileges committee, somebody there must have noted that that's not the kind of thing we want to be. First of all, it's not the kind of thinking we are expecting. And then when it gets into the public space, it tells us that people we have entrusted with responsibility, many of them are there simply because they are there to promote certain perks for themselves and their family members. And that's the challenge. I mean, my school at Chumota, for some years when I go, they say, the level of protocol on the government side is such that now we don't even have our own, it's very limited and so forth. Because it means the politicians are taking over and ensuring that they have the influence over everything, and that's why in certain spaces trying to take very objective, independent decisions based on meritocracy and competency is not being allowed to flourish, and that's a challenge. So that's an unfortunate statement. Ideally, within themselves, somebody ought to point it out. And they need to examine themselves. Is that the kind of thing they are there for? Is that what promotes us as a country? Certainly not. That you have people taken then, and the protocol list should have my people. Why should that be the case?
No.
So
go ahead,
that's
sir.
part of the reason why the conduct of public officers bill is so important, because we found that issues of ethics, conflict of interest, have not been codified and sanctioned.
Right.
And so the reason why we really needed that law was that, look, if you went to court that a public officer has said this or done that, there is no clear process for saying, okay, this is wrong, and these are the sanctions. So the conduct of public officers, but that's one of the things the lacunas is supposed to address, that the persons who talk like this, it's clearly, a conflict of interest situation, it's an ethical issue. What do we do about it? That's one of the ways of ensuring that public officers begin to sit up and understand that you can't talk loosely like that.
The institutions of state that are mandated to help us fight corruption, reduce it to the barest minimum, what do you think? Are they doing what they have to do within their remits, or are they leaving everything to chance?
I'll tell you what, as we're talking about the review of constitution and all that, and I think that public reform in our country has been very slow. Those of us who do policy work, we say policy is dynamic, not static. But it appears that in our space, to a very large extent, when we come up with laws and policies, they remain on the books unchanged for years, when even the times have changed and the circumstances don't allow those laws or policies to be as effective. In my head, with the OSP, for example, one of the key things we put in that has helped us is that every 6 months report to the good people of this country. Because we found that other agencies, a case is reported, we have no clue whether they've investigated. We have no clue what actions have been taken. We have no clue what the results are. Unless, of course, it's something that the presidency is interested in and it gets to them and they say, well, the person is cleared or whatever, which again is not what we expect as good practice. So we need to look again at the framework that we've provided for them. And one of the things that clearly for me would make a difference is a reporting obligation to the citizens of this country for all these agencies. So we know, Trudge, what cases have you handled in the last 6 months?
Right.
So that if you submit it, you will be clear whether they've made work. What stage has it gotten to? I think that lack of supervision means that many of them may not be doing anything, and even they're doing certain things, they are not reaching the point of conclusion where they are taking action and biting. And it's one of the reasons why the OSP has come under such scrutiny, because it's the only one where we are getting information. We can see, okay, there's no traction in court. The court cases are not being, but other areas you can see something. Simply because the other entities, we don't have that oversight. We don't have that look into what is going on. And yet we are paying large numbers of people to occupy positions, presumably serving us. But there is really no such indication that, substantive work is being done.
Ghanaians typically are peace-loving, but there's also the concern that some Ghanaians know that a wrong thing is being done. But then somebody will say in a can, we are not quick to call out people who are doing wrong things that will hurt all of us eventually. What advice do you have for all of us in closing?
I think that that's something of a value we need to work at. I suspect that the older generations had that because, I remember growing up, neighbors or anybody who saw you doing something wrong will call you out.
I agree.
It wasn't a,
I agree.
Yeah, it wasn't a hidden thing.
That's right.
Gradually, we seem to be losing that. And it's one of the areas where I say, look, in comparing where Africa is to the West, there are Western values that I think have undermined their societies and they are crumbling. Take a good look at the West. These so-called ideals they stood for haven't gotten them. So there are things we have we should not lose. And one of them simply is this ability to tell you to your face, this is wrong. Ghanaians have found a way of, polishing it. So when we get to the poll, we'll give you a massive, there you go. We're all quietly unhappy.
Right.
But I think it's also because of a certain arrogance and unwillingness to accept correction. So the two must go on. The humility to accept correction and to listen to others' views, because that's our culture. That's what happens in the chief's palace. Everybody speaks, and then the wisdom of the collective helps the leader to take an informed position. We should continue to do that and serve in humility. Those values, African values, Ghanaian values, let's continue to promote and project them and instill them in the next generation to make the change we want to see.
Mr. Edem Senanu, the great gentleman of our republic, co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Thank you for spending your morning with us.
Johnny, thank you. I salute you. I'm just a humble servant.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you.
And I appreciate you too.
Thank you, sir.
Bye for now.
Sir. Corruption is not